I'm so excited to see you here today. So the agenda is we're going to set the context and define sales call reluctance. So sales call reluctance is the emotional hesitation to proactively prospect and promote. So that's the initiating contact stage, and then it's also promoting the closing of your sale. So that's the definition for sales call reluctance. We're going to find out, how do you know if you experience sales call reluctance? So we'll find out there. And then how 3 types of sales call reluctance show up on the sales call. Go a little deeper into that. And then how to psychologically prepare for your sales call. So I work with salespeople across industry lines, and oftentimes what I find is they're rushing from one thing to another, and guess what? They're not showing up their best self. And that can really influence your success. So we'll talk about that. And then tips, and more tips. Some very subtle tips and some blatant tips that can really help you become more effective at selling. And it is really exciting. So it's titled The 3 Proven Tips, Techniques. I'm going to give you more than that. So thank you for being here. So let's look at call reluctance. So oftentimes when people have the call reluctance, they're in denial. They don't want to take a look at it. So the goal here is to become aware of it, aware that you're hesitating. And how this shows up too oftentimes is where you're reluctant to follow through with those prospects that have voiced an interest, and they're kind of warm prospects, but they just haven't quite committed. That's where oftentimes the call reluctance shows up, in the follow through. And so that we have a little bit of resistance there, and we get a little bit angry at a lot of different things. I always say, what are we directing our anger at? And if you can just admit, I am hesitating to proactively prospect, and just admit it, accept it. Doesn't mean you like it. It just means that you're going to move through by just admitting that you're experiencing it, because I promise you that call reluctance is nothing to be embarrassed about, but living with it needlessly is. So then you can search for solutions. You're going to learn how to observe and reorient yourself. So some of these tips today are going to help you do that. And then to help you make that internal shift in your entire being. So solving call reluctance is more than just from the neck up. And when I do the trainings and coaching, it's a whole body experience. So your brain is in your whole body. It's in your fingers and your toes and your heart and your throat, right? And it's regarding your emotions and your language. So it's body, emotions, and language that helps you get comfortable and consistent with your prospecting. So let's just define sales. Selling is simply you're solving people's problems for a profit. And it's okay. It's okay to sell. One of the types of call reluctance that is very prevalent is role rejection, where people just aren't comfortable being a salesperson. And we're going to get to the bottom of that one today. So you solve people's problems for a profit. You've worked hard for it. You have certifications and degrees and spent hours in training for all of this, correct? So that's what the selling definition is that I use here. So call reluctance is a learned behavior. Yes, indeed, you learned it, so you can unlearn it. And it's developed through repetition. So once you start hesitating, and guess what? If you continue, it gets worse. So hiding, denying, and suppressing the call reluctance is not helpful for you or for your company and your prospects. So call reluctance distorts your perceptions and actions. So feeling that you're doing something wrong, people don't like salespeople, people don't like to be called on the phone anymore, and those are different types of negative intruders that distort your perceptions and what moves you forward. It can hold on tightly, so letting go or changing does take some effort. And if you don't confront it, guess what? It becomes part of your psychology. So for 22 years now, I've been working with people on call reluctance. I had call reluctance and worked myself through it, and I am confident that you can too. And this is the beginning, and this is your reset day where you can reset. So that's the call reluctance. So, you know, you have relationships and networks and connections. And what I would like you to ask yourself is, if not me, who? So what do I mean by that? If not me, who is going to help these prospects achieve their goal? So there are dozens and thousands of salespeople out there, but guess what? There are prospects that only you, because of your connections, relationships, network, can help these people. So that's tip number one. Put your hand on your heart and say, if not me, who? Who's going to help this person that is on the top of my prospect list here today, so that you can truly take it on as a responsibility that you have in order to help your prospects. So here's another tip, that when you're prospecting and in a sales conversation, that your internal language is, it's not about me. This one tip has helped more of my clients, the ones that are picking up the telephone, business to business, business to consumer, that they just say to themselves, if not, it's not about me. Does that take the pressure off? It's not about me. Because it's first and foremost being of value and solving this person in front of you or on the phone. So just take a deep breath and say, it's not about me. And you have the determination, the endurance, and the confidence to move forward. Start practicing that and see what happens. I was talking to a very successful owner of a big company that's buying insurance agencies up throughout the United States, and he was successful at selling insurance. I said, what made you successful when you were prospecting? He said, every day I told myself I'm on a rescue mission. I am rescuing people. And so that is the way that he embodied his value. So do you like that? If not me? So feel free to ask any questions over here or make any comments. That is always helpful to know that you're on board here. Okay, now, centering. Before you go into a sales call, before you start prospecting, Dr. Stuart Heller was hired by NASA, the space agency, to work with leaders. And he said that he noticed leaders that were running from meeting to meeting to meeting, and they were carrying the residual emotions from the last meeting into the next meeting, into the next meeting. And so he wrote this book. It's a good 1.5 inches thick. He goes, if you get nothing else out of this book, learn how to center. And so what he teaches is, before you go into a meeting, before you start your prospecting, put both feet flat on the floor and take a deep breath. So the only way you can control your body is through your emotions. The only way that you can control, okay, I said that. I'm going to repeat that. The only way you can control your emotions is through your breath. The only way you can control your emotions is through your breath. So you take a deep breath and you center yourself. So you actually get your mind, your body all in, and your emotions all in alignment before you go into a conversation. So he said, just to say, where are my feet? Now, this is going to sound a little silly to you. Remember, this is somebody who was teaching at the National Space Agency, the most brilliant scientist, space scientist you can get, is to be able to say, I have feet and legs. Breathe. I have arms and hands. Breathe. I have a head and spine, and you breathe. Now, why in the world do I have woman's feet here in very, very attractive shoes, right? I have a theory that the reason that women sometimes do not show up as coherent as they could is because they're not grounded. They're not grounded. They do not have sensible shoes on that are grounded. They're not as fashionable, but guess what? When you're grounded, you're more coherent. You're a better listener. You are absolutely living more in your physical body, your whole body. So your body is your brain, right? So as a woman, guess what? I encourage you to really take a look at this and start noticing how much more coherent you are. I was going to have one of those challenging conversations with a client, and I had heels on, and I was getting ready. I changed, and it was so much more effective in that conversation because I was more grounded. So that is your next tip. Get grounded. Before you get out of your car, before you start your presentation, to be able to, and sometimes what I do is I just feel my feet flat on the floor and that there are two lights of energy going down my legs, each leg 20 feet into the ground. Wow, you talk about stability, because that's how you want to show up in your sales conversations. Stable and coherent. Makes sense? So, moving forward here. So, allow 15 minutes extra. Do you know that I read an article that said that people who will leave 10 minutes before planned have a whole lot of less stress, and stress can really, really wreak havoc in our body, right? So allow 15 minutes extra for you to get to your sales meeting. Set your intention for the sales meeting. What is the intention? And set that emotionally, physically, and mentally. What is the intention? Be really clear on the realistic outcome that you want. Realistically, take a deep breath and say, the outcome I want is what it is that you really, really want. And do you want to leave there with, as a next step, a closed sale? Do you want to leave there with a complete understanding of what it is that they want? So get clear on that realistic outcome that you want. Somebody said, great tip on getting grounded. So thank you. And then follow a formula for a sales conversation. Okay, I coach seasoned salespeople and rookies, and I can tell you, when you have a formula and a process, it is not hard. It really is not hard when you have a formula and a process. And I'm going to share with you a process for a sales conversation today. And I know many of your companies have them, but I have a friend who is a buyer. for a big company. And he said, Connie, if one more salesperson comes in here with a PowerPoint, it has all the logos of companies their company has worked to in the past, I am going to lose my mind. It is so outdated. And so I'm going to teach you a way for you to have a sales conversation that is going to really create a completely different connection with your prospects. Forget your presentation until you discover their needs. Oh my goodness. If that can be the biggest tip of the month, is it's not about you. It really is not about you. Discover their needs, and there's a lot of time that you don't even need to do a presentation if you did a good discovery of their needs. So all these sales presentations where people are, and you know, when you really learn about the brain and the attention span, and people are not listening to those presentations anymore. They really aren't, and they're just bored silly. Ask them what questions they have for you. And I'm going to put that it's in the formula, right? And so oftentimes when you have people that, you know, there are people that you get a call from that say, hey, I want to talk to you. The first question is, what's prompting your inquiry? What's prompting your inquiry? So remember, whoever's asking questions is in control. So get really good at that. So 70% of the sale is engagement and discovering the needs of your prospect. Yes, 70%. And so when you're in front of somebody and you're in front of a prospect, this is a presentation that will help you so that you can move forward with effectiveness and not blow it. Because there are so many, it's not easy to get in front of a prospect. Once you're there, you be so centered and congruent and coherent that you discover the needs of your prospect, and that sale will organically unfold for you if the timing is right. So here are the questions for the prospect when you go into a sales meeting. And always, how much time did you set aside for us today? How many of you are asking that question? So from this moment forward, because you know what, it is so fascinating. I asked somebody that recently and they said 20 minutes. I said, okay, 20 minutes. And some people go, I thought 40, 45 minutes. And then you keep an eye on the clock. You could even set your alarm. You do what you have to do to stick within that time so that you do not, what do they call about it, that you overstay your welcome. You want to leave before they want you to. So how much time did you set aside for us today? And you'll find out how serious they are at having a discovery conversation with you. So the next question is, what is the best possible outcome of our conversation? Wow and wow. You ask that question, and I was coaching the other day a seasoned salesperson. He goes, Connie, I haven't been asking that question. So what's the value of that question to your prospect? So what's the best possible outcome of our conversation? And they're going to tell you, and it's going to be enlightening to you. And then you're going to stay on track there. You're going to find out how much preparation they've done and what their interest level is. So here is the formula for having a sales conversation. And then really, really noticing how any of the call reluctance shows up, where that emotional hesitation comes up, to pay attention to it. So what is your desired situation? So you've set the context of the call. So what's your desired situation? So they say, you know what, I'm looking for some commercial insurance. So what is your desired situation? I'm looking for leadership training. What is your desired situation? So you're going to really, really focus on that in big time, desired situation. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to start telling you about their current reality. And that's okay. You can make notes about the current reality. Keep them focused on the desired situation. And you want to go further than just superficial details. You want to go like, what will it mean to you? What will it mean to you to have that desired situation? Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I got a question. How do you prevent prospect from ghosting you? I make initial contact and get a response from them that they are willing to talk. They even provide me with their cell phone numbers and the best time to talk. But when I call, they don't answer time after time. This has been happening a lot lately. I wonder why they respond to me in the first place if they don't have intentions of talking to me, or is it something else? So I would have to know more here around how you're setting up that conversation. And what is it that you're going to be talking about in that conversation? So if you want to give me a little bit more detail, I'll be able to answer you better. So I'm a big believer in like, what's the value of this conversation for you, right? And I'm curious what you want to come out of our conversation. So you can say in our conversation, what is it that's coming out of it? So that might be a good thing for you. Instead of just setting up an appointment, what is it that you want out of this conversation to be able to get them to document it before you set up the call? So, okay, that's off the top of my head there. So what is your desired situation? Keep them focused there. Keep them focused there. What's it going to mean to you? What difference is this going to make for you? And go as deep as you can. Now, you're not going to jump and start selling after they told you about their desired situation. And I can tell you that takes discipline. Most salespeople, what's your desired situation? Well, I want an IT company that does X, Y, Z. I want this. And then the salesperson goes, we can do it. We are going to come in and we do this and this and this. Guess what? You just blew it, right? So what is your desired situation? Then what has limited you from achieving this? What kept you from taking care of it before now? That is where you want to just go as deep as you possibly can. So what's kept you from doing this before now? Well, and you just get them talking and you go, what else? Those are your 2 new favorite words for your sales call. What else? What else? What else? One of my clients said, oh my goodness, does that work? Is what else? What's kept you from this? What else? I haven't had budget till now. What else? Our CEO wasn't on board until now. What else? And they're just telling you all this information. And so they're telling you about their current reality right now, right? So that's why you don't want to go in there and say, tell me what you're doing. Because then, their current reality. You get them into a positive place about desired situation, and then what else, what has limited them, go as deep as you possibly can. What are your 2 new favorite words? What else? Then, now this is where call reluctance comes in. So the question here, and I know we have international people on the call today, so in the U.S., what's at stake if nothing changes? What's at stake if you don't do this? So in the U.S., that translates well. I found out after talking to an international audience that does not translate well in other languages. So here's the second option. How will you feel if nothing changes and you do not achieve this? Okay, so choose which one. So how will you feel if nothing changes? How will you feel if you don't get that IT problem solved? How will you feel if you do not get that leadership training? How will you feel if you don't get your logistics in order, right? And so this is where they are getting involved emotionally. Now, this is people buy emotionally, justify logically, right? And so this is where the yielder call reluctance comes in, because people with yielder call reluctance, they don't like making the prospect uncomfortable. So I'm going to talk about that. So we're going to choose one of those questions. Which one is it? So how do you feel if you don't achieve this? Well, I'm going to lose my job, or we're going to lose market share, or we're going to have to buy 20 new computers. I don't know what it is, but it needs to come out of their mouth. So one of the truisms in sales, when it comes out of your mouth, they doubt it. When it comes out of their mouth, it's true. So that is the value, the true value of finding out and following a formula. So that's the formula. So just know, for your prospect to move forward, there needs to be tension. There needs to be a disruptor. There needs to be a challenge for them to move from their current reality to their desired result. Now, if you're uncomfortable being that disruptor, you're not serving your clients. Because clients, to move from point A to point B, it does require some tension. So your questions, your empathy, as you show up physically, your posture, your emotions, your internal language. And sometimes you even say, I might ask you some questions that are uncomfortable for you. So I work with people who sell long-term insurance, and guess what? They have to find out, how many prescriptions are you on? Oh, you're on 14. That's not good for underwriting, is it? I'm going to ask you a few questions that they might challenge you a little bit. Are you okay with that? So just know there has to be a disruptor. So for you to say, I'm a disruptor, my role here is to be a disruptor. I believe that this is the best solution, and here I am presenting it. So does that make sense? Do you like it? So next step is, what's your sense of urgency? What's your sense of urgency for something like this? You need to find out right here, right now. So they told you their desired situation. They told you that what's limited them. And then they told you what's at stake if they choose not to do this. Now you're going to ask them, what is your sense of urgency? Wow. They're going to tell you now, or they're going to say, 6 months from now. Now you know. You have to ask that question. So what's your sense of urgency? You do a good job and they go, yesterday. And if they don't have a sense of urgency, then it's a timing issue. It doesn't mean that everything is going to go down the rabbit hole. It just means, okay, I found out what their sense of urgency is. And so now the next step is to ask them, what is the next step? So I'm beating on my desk here because I know salespeople. This is where they jump in and they start presenting to their detriment, to their literal detriment. Ask the prospect, so what's the next step? Let it come out of their mouth. What is the next step? They might say, well, tell me how you can help me. Tell me what you recommend. Get me a proposal. But you have to ask them, don't tell them. Because telling is selling telling is not selling. Telling is not selling. So what's the next step? And they go, well, let's just sign up. What's the financial investment on this, right? And so now you can come forward and do your presentations. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I have a question. It says, I'm launching my own business software solutions and services. So need to actually sell in order to get projects in the door. And I'm a delivery guy, not a salesperson by nature and experience. And I'm already running into, we don't need anything. We're good. Brush off. So how do I get past that to start having some sort of value add conversation? Okay, so here's what I recommend that you do is you ask them, how much focus and attention do you put on business software solutions? How much focus and attention do you put on, and then have your value proposition right there? So you're going to find out how much focus and attention. They go, we're already working with somebody else. I understand. If that person could do one thing better for you, what would it be? So how much focus and attention do you put on your value proposition? And if they say, we're good, I see. I'm curious if your current provider has talked to you about XYZ, something that is relevant, something that is in your industry. And so that you can, and you're going to interrupt their pattern of we don't need anything. Whoever asked this question, take my email down, Connie@exceptionalsales.com, and I'll email you an article. Say I was on there, email me that article, and it's going to help you tremendously. And it's about interrupting the pattern of, I don't need anything, we're good. It will help you out there. So thank you for that question. Okay, so over-prepare or call reluctance is the over-analyzer. Okay, so that's somebody who analyzes and does spreadsheet. Now, what we're going to talk about is how that over-preparer shows up during the sales conversation. So that over-preparer behavior. So they're the talkers, having difficulty saying, I'm not sure, when somebody asks them a question. They're giving away way too much information. They're trying to cover all the bases with the prospect. This is where what questions you have for me will save you from this over-preparer call reluctance. I will give you my email address at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So people with over-prepare call reluctance, they answer questions the prospect is not even asking. Going back to the wisdom of what questions do you have for me, you're staying focused on their agenda and not your agenda because it's not about you, right? And they presume the more information I give these people, it's going to close the sale. Not only no, but hell no, it doesn't work. Because when you're just talking, their brain may not even be listening. When somebody is in a conversation, their brain is scanning the information and they're saying, what do I already know here? They land on it and they stop listening. So that is how that over-preparer behavior shows up, and they confuse the customer. They start talking about how they're going to do something when the customer doesn't even care. So what questions do you have for me? And if they go, well, so how do you do this? Go ahead and ask. But if they don't ask how, don't tell them. You're blowing it, right? So role rejection, call reluctance. This is the one where people are actually ashamed that they are in sales. It is a contagious call reluctance that is throughout companies. It's all the way up to the CEO of boards. People with insurance, terrible. So we're solving people's problems for a profit. And there is a company out there right now that teaches their rookies to say, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Guess what? You're blowing it. You are absolutely blowing it. You are selling them on being open to having a conversation with you. So in the back of your head, your manager is going, get out there and sell, sell, sell. And then the salesperson goes, I'm not trying to sell you anything. And the prospect's going, who are you kidding? Why are you even talking to me? So that role rejection, call reluctance is in, and if those of you that are managers, and if you are, you can actually be contaminating the very people that you intend to inspire. So role rejection behaviors, how they show up when they're in the conversation. Try to sound overly positive. They're secretly ashamed. It's like somebody told me yesterday that has role rejection, call reluctance, and I'm coaching her, and she's doing fantastic. We're really helping her get out of that narrative. And a couple of her things were, I feel like I'm manhandling them when I'm trying to close them, right? Or that I'm trying to drive sales opposed to looking at the responsibility that she has to sell them. Here's what's fascinating. People with role rejection behaviors rarely feel pride in their sales accomplishments. They sell $165,000 worth of architecture. They sell $250,000 of insurance premium. And they go, yeah, I sold it. And they're happy for a minute, but they do not feel the accomplishment. And that's a biggie. You want to feel the accomplishment. They take their pain to tell the prospect they're not trying to sell anything. I think I beat that drum, haven't I? They're over fragile, take it too personal if the customer has a negative reaction. I mean, if our prospects have a negative reaction, I'm going to take a sip of water. Hold on. Hold on. I have to take a sip of water. Hold on. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Somebody say, yeah, I can hear you. I was having a coughing fit. Sorry. So make sure you can hear me. So and then I hung up and I had to dial in again. So sorry. Okay. Can somebody go, yeah, I can hear you. Okay. So those of you that, thank you, that aren't comfortable with selling, guess what? There are rascals in every industry. So who do you want to identify with? I want to identify with top salespeople that are proud of what they do and that they're so value add? Or do you want to identify with the negative stereotype? So what is your narrative around sales and salespeople? So how many salespeople do you duck and dodge? How do you feel when a salesperson prospects you? And how do you treat salespeople who attempt to engage you? And so I'm asking those questions so that to engage you and challenge you so that you get comfortable with sales. I mean, it's okay. And are you good to people and courteous to people? You're not going to buy from them. You don't have to buy from them if you don't want to, but get comfortable with the sales and being within sales, right? So embody your value. What do I mean by that? To embody your value is, what is your worth? What is your worth in the marketplace? And can you feel your worth? What are you contributing to your prospect? You're enlightening them. you are teaching them, you are educating them on solutions. What can you contribute to your prospect? You need to know it with every fiber of your body. What do you bring to the table that solves their problem? I'm sorry. Enlightens them, challenges them, disrupts them. That's the value that you bring to the prospect. I'm here in Arizona. Thank you for your patience. So embody your value. What is it, right? So the Sales Call Reluctance is, I'll let you read this slide that George Clooney, he said, I had to stop going to auditions thinking, I hope they'll like me. And going to thinking, I was the answer to their problem, right? One of the most amazing actors out there. So it's okay if you have this call reluctance, but you're going to overcome it, right? So how does this yielder behavior, the number one type of call reluctance and the most costly, shows up on the sales call? They're not taking control of the conversation. They don't have a process. So you're going to get a process, yes? They don't have a response to let me think it over. When somebody says, I need to think this over, what in particular is it that you need to think over? I can tell you when you get that, you have not followed the right formula. Engages in excessive amounts of visiting or chit-chat. That's why you say, how much time have we today, right? How much time do we have? So engaging excessive amounts of chit-chat. They go off on irrelevant rapport building and time-consuming tangents. Stop it. If your prospect wants to have a little chit-chat, go there. But if they don't, because you're just wasting time. Trying to be a friend, you don't get a friendship bonus, right? So not so that they don't sound pushy or close-oriented. Not assertive in making recommendations or asking for the order. I love talking to really seasoned salespeople that are good, like, how do you ask for an order? And I mean, it's fascinating. You can start asking that question too. So after the sales call, debrief the sales conversation immediately in your head as you're going, what did I do well? Embellish it. Oh, I was so good at this. I followed the formula. I left there with a step forward. It just felt good. They learned something they didn't know before. What would you do differently next time? 2 things. What would you never do again? Big time. Answer those questions. Continuous learning. You need to be 2 steps ahead of your highest level prospect in communication and leadership skills. That's why people need coaches. 2 steps ahead of the highest level of prospecting, communication, and leadership skills. You cannot dilly-dally on this one. Get books, read YouTubes, Bright Talk videos, consistently learning so you're ahead of your prospect in that regard. So I'm going to pose some questions here. Self-observation and self-awareness. So what if your presence is so overpowering and dominating that a prospect is reluctant to share their real issues? Take a deep breath, because that can happen. So that's where you really have to practice and role play and join in, etc. I'm looking at the time here. And what if your focus on your agenda is so strong that your connection to the prospect is diminished, right? And what if your aspirations are so intense that you fail to recognize the prospect wants something simpler and more achievable? So really become acutely aware and observing you. So I have an assessment that measures for call reluctance if you're interested. So thank you for being kind to me with my cough. So here's my email. So if any of you want, if you're this pattern interrupt their pattern, or we're good, we're already working with somebody, email me, feel free to do that. And just know that I'm here to answer any other questions. I know I've got like 1 minute to go, and then we're all going to be cut off here. No, we have 3 minutes. So I've got to go anyway. So thank you. Feel free to give me, shoot me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, and look at my stuff from time to time, because I've got some really good stuff. So I believe in salespeople. I want to help you so that you can move forward and just get out there and be successful and do the right thing. Yes, because the world needs good salespeople. So thank you. Any advice for natural introverts? Not so much for chit chat. Yeah, send me an email. We'll talk. Okay, they're going to cut me off here. So thank you for being here today, and I appreciate you and wish you the best.